I used to think you were the cleverest man alive. Sansa Stark says this to Tyrion Lannister in Season 8, Episode 1 of Game of Thrones, her voice dripping with disappointment. They're standing in Winterfell, reunited for the first time since Joffrey's wedding, and Tyrion has just tried to reassure her that Cersei will send troops to fight the Night King. This single line, this moment of quiet judgment from a woman Tyrion once pitied as naive, destroys something fundamental in Tyrion Lannister. It exposes what viewers have been watching for 2 seasons but hoping wasn't true. The cleverest man in Westeros isn't clever anymore. The dwarf who survived King's Landing's deadly politics through pure intelligence, who won the Battle of Blackwater through brilliant strategy, who talked his way out of death a dozen times, who drank and knew things, that man is gone. What's left is someone making catastrophic mistakes while clinging to the reputation of who he used to be. And Sansa's words, calm, cutting, final, are the moment Tyrion can no longer pretend otherwise. But this failure only happened because the showrunners were obsessed with keeping Tyrion a hero. They stripped away his darkness to make him likable, and in doing so, they took away his brain. George R.R. Martin, however, is writing a very different story. In the books, Tyrion isn't losing his intelligence, he is losing his soul. He is becoming the villain the world always accused him of being, and he is actively wanting to burn Westeros to the ground. If you want to meet the real Tyrion Lannister, the dark, vengeful monster we should have gotten, I've broken down his terrifying book transformation on my new channel. Click the link in the pinned comment to see what HBO was too scared to show you. Let's examine how this scene destroys Tyrion's confidence, why it represents the culmination of his fall from grace, and what it reveals about the cost of losing yourself while trying to believe in something bigger.
Part 1. Who Tyrion Used to Be. To understand what Sansa's words destroy, you have to understand who Tyrion Lannister was in the early seasons. In Season 1, Tyrion is the smartest person in every room. He reads people instantly. When Catelyn Stark captures him at the inn, he talks his way into a trial by combat. When the mountain clans threaten to kill him, he convinces them to fight for his father's army instead. He survives through wit when everyone else survives through swords. In Season 2, Tyrion becomes acting hand of the king and proves his brilliance. He plays the small council members against each other to find who's spying for Cersei. He manages Joffrey's cruelty while keeping the city functioning. And when Stannis attacks with overwhelming force, Tyrion devises the wildfire strategy and leads men into battle, saving King's Landing despite being outnumbered 10-1. This is Tyrion at his peak, dangerous, clever, always 3 moves ahead. "I drink and I know things," he tells Daenerys in Season 6, and it's not arrogance, it's fact. Tyrion's intelligence has been his weapon, his armor, his way of surviving in a world designed to crush people like him. He's been underestimated his entire life because of his dwarfism, but he's turned that into an advantage. While others rely on swords and armies, Tyrion relies on his mind. And for 5 seasons, it works perfectly. Part 2. The Slow Decline. But something changes when Tyrion crosses the narrow sea and joins Daenerys. In Season 5, Tyrion is still sharp. He figures out Jorah's identity. He navigates the dangers of Meereen. He earns Daenerys' trust through intelligence and insight. But by Season 6 and 7, cracks start appearing. He leaves Meereen in chaos. While governing in Daenerys' absence, Tyrion tries to compromise with the slave masters. It backfires catastrophically. The masters see negotiation as weakness and attack the city with their entire fleet. Only Daenerys' return with her dragons saves them. He plans the Westeros invasion poorly. Tyrion's strategy is to send the Unsullied to Casterly Rock, while the Dornish and Tyrell armies lay siege to King's Landing. It's logical on paper, but Cersei and Jaime outmaneuver him completely. Casterly Rock is empty, a trap. Highgarden falls. The Greyjoy fleet destroys the Dornish ships. Every move Tyrion makes, Cersei counters brilliantly. He trusts Cersei during the Dragon Pit meeting. In Season 7, Tyrion arranges a meeting to convince Cersei to join the fight against the dead. They bring a white to prove the threat is real. Cersei seems to agree. She promises to send her forces north, and Tyrion believes her. Despite knowing Cersei better than almost anyone, despite having spent his entire life watching her lie, manipulate, and betray, despite having killed their father and being sentenced to death by her, Tyrion looks at the woman who has tried to murder him multiple times and thinks, yes, she'll keep her word this time. This is insanity, and everyone sees it. Varys questions it, Daenerys questions it, but Tyrion insists Cersei will honor the agreement because she's pregnant, because she wants her child to survive, because she's rational enough to see the existential threat. It's delusional, and it's the clearest sign that Tyrion's judgment has been catastrophically compromised. Part 3. The Reunion with Sansa. Which brings us to Season 8, Episode 1, and Tyrion's reunion with Sansa in Winterfell. They haven't seen each other since Joffrey's wedding. A miserable affair, Tyrion calls it. It had its moments, Sansa replies dryly, referring to Joffrey's death. There's affection in their banter. These two have history. Tyrion was kind to Sansa when they were forced to marry. He protected her when he could. Sansa remembers that he was the best of her husbands, which is a tragically low bar, but still. But then the conversation turns to Cersei. Tyrion tries to reassure Sansa about the Lannister forces coming to help fight the Night King. He says Cersei wants to survive, that she'll honor the agreement, that Sansa will be safe. And Sansa sees through it instantly. And you believed her? The disdain in her voice is cutting. She's not asking, she's marveling at his stupidity. Tyrion tries to defend his position. Cersei is pregnant. She has something to live for. She wants her child to survive. But Sansa just looks at him with something close to pity and says, I used to think you were the cleverest man alive. Then she walks away. She doesn't argue, doesn't explain, doesn't need to.
Because that one sentence says everything. You used to be smart. You used to see through people's lies. You used to be the man who survived King's Landing through pure intelligence. You used to be someone I respected, but not anymore. Part 4. Why this destroys Tyrion. Watch Tyrion's face after Sansa leaves. He's shaken, genuinely rattled. Because Sansa isn't just anyone. She's someone who has every reason to see Tyrion favorably. He was kind to her when others were cruel. He refused to consummate their marriage against her will. He's one of the few people in King's Landing who treated her with basic decency. If anyone would give Tyrion the benefit of the doubt, it should be Sansa. But she doesn't. She sees exactly what he's become, someone making terrible decisions while clinging to past reputation. And what makes it worse is that Sansa is right. Hours after this conversation, Jaime Lannister arrives in Winterfell and confirms what Sansa already knew. Cersei is not sending troops. She lied. She's planning to let the North and Daenerys fight the dead while she consolidates power in the South. Tyrion was wrong, catastrophically wrong, and Sansa knew it immediately. This is what destroys Tyrion's confidence, not just being wrong, but being so obviously, predictably wrong that even Sansa, who he once thought of as naive, sees through his delusion while he can't. Part 5. The Pattern of Failure. After Sansa's words, Tyrion's failures compound. He's relegated to the crypts during the Battle of Winterfell because Daenerys doesn't trust his judgment anymore. She explicitly questions his usefulness after so many strategic mistakes. He releases Jaime before the battle for King's Landing, trying to give his brother a chance to save Cersei and prevent carnage. It fails. Jaime dies with Cersei in the collapsing Red Keep. He trusts Daenerys to stop the destruction of King's Landing if they ring the bells to surrender. The bells ring, the city surrenders, and Daenerys burns it anyway, killing hundreds of thousands of innocents while Tyrion watches in horror. Every decision Tyrion makes in Season 8 is wrong. Every piece of advice backfires. Every attempt to find a peaceful solution leads to more death. And through it all, Sansa's words echo, I used to think you were the cleverest man alive. Because Tyrion isn't clever anymore. He's desperate. He's clinging to hope instead of seeing reality. He's making decisions based on who he wants people to be rather than who they actually are. This is the opposite of the Tyrion who survived King's Landing. That Tyrion saw people clearly, judged them accurately, planned for their worst impulses, not their best. But somewhere between Meereen and Winterfell, Tyrion lost that ability, and Sansa is the first person to say it out loud. Part 6. Why Tyrion lost his edge. The question is, what happened? How did the cleverest man in Westeros become so catastrophically bad at reading people and situations? Theory 1. He fell in love with Daenerys. The Season 7 scripts describe Tyrion watching Daenerys with admiration, noting her beauty, feeling flustered when she catches him looking. When Jon and Daenerys become romantically involved, Tyrion stands outside her door looking troubled, not just politically concerned, but emotionally conflicted. If Tyrion loved Daenerys, or at least loved what she represented, it would explain his blindness. Love makes people stupid. It makes them see what they want to see instead of what's there. Tyrion wanted to believe Daenerys was different from other rulers, that she would break the wheel instead of becoming another spoke, that she would choose mercy over vengeance. So he ignored the warning signs, the crucifixions in Meereen, the burning of the Tarleys, the growing ruthlessness in her decisions. He loved the idea of Daenerys so much that he stopped seeing her clearly. Theory 2. He lost his cynicism. In King's Landing, Tyrion was cynical. He expected the worst from people and was rarely disappointed. This cynicism kept him alive, but with Daenerys, he wanted to believe in something better. He wanted to believe that breaking the cycle of terrible rulers was possible, that someone could actually rule justly, that the world could change. This hope made him vulnerable. It made him trust people he shouldn't, Cersei. It made him excuse behavior he would have condemned before, Daenerys' violence. It made him believe in promises instead of analyzing probabilities. Tyrion stopped being a cynic and became an idealist. And in Westeros, idealists die.
Theory 3. He was out of his element. In King's Landing, Tyrion understood the game. He knew the players, the stakes, the rules. He could read Cersei, Joffrey, the small council, because he'd lived among them his entire life. But with Daenerys in Essos, and then in Westeros' war against the dead, Tyrion was playing a different game, one where dragons and armies matter more than clever words, where the traditional rules don't apply, where his usual weapons, manipulation, negotiation, political maneuvering, are less effective. Tyrion was brilliant at court intrigue, but he was mediocre at military strategy and terrible at understanding rulers who don't think like Westerosi nobles. He was out of his depth and too proud to admit it. Part 7. What Sansa saw that Tyrion didn't. Here's what makes Sansa's judgment so devastating. She learned from her suffering, while Tyrion forgot the lessons of his. Sansa's education in cruelty taught her never to trust what people say. She trusted Joffrey's promises. He tortured her. She trusted Littlefinger's guidance. He sold her to Ramsay. She trusted men who seemed kind. They betrayed her. By Season 8, Sansa trusts actions, not words. She watches what people do, not what they promise. And when Tyrion tells her Cersei will send troops, Sansa immediately knows it's a lie, because she's watched Cersei for years. She knows Cersei values power over survival, pride over pragmatism, revenge over reason. Tyrion should know this too. He grew up with Cersei. He's been her victim countless times. He knows exactly how cruel, vindictive, and short-sighted she can be. But he wants to believe she's changed, that pregnancy has softened her, that maternal instinct will override her worst impulses. Sansa sees this delusion instantly, and she's disappointed because Tyrion used to be smarter than this. He used to be the one who saw through everyone's lies. Now, he's the one being fooled.
Part 8. The cost of believing. What Sansa's words expose is the tragic cost of Tyrion's transformation. He went from a cynical survivor who trusted no one to an idealistic advisor who wanted to believe in something better. And that idealism destroyed his judgment. The old Tyrion would never have trusted Cersei's promise. He would have assumed she was lying and planned accordingly. The old Tyrion would have seen Daenerys' capacity for violence and limited it instead of excusing it. The old Tyrion would have recognized when his strategies were failing and adapted faster. But the new Tyrion, desperate to believe in Daenerys, in change, in a better world, clung to hope even when reality was screaming at him to see clearly. And hope, in Westeros, is dangerous. It blinds you. It makes you believe in the best of people when you should prepare for the worst. It makes you think love and reason can overcome cruelty and ambition. Tyrion's hope made him useless. And Sansa, who learned long ago that hope is a luxury survivors can't afford, sees it immediately. Part 9. The Moment of Recognition. What makes this scene so powerful is that it's not just Sansa passing judgment. It's Tyrion recognizing the truth of her words. He doesn't defend himself, doesn't argue that she's wrong, doesn't try to explain his reasoning further. He just stands there, processing the reality that he's become what he once mocked, someone who doesn't see clearly, someone who makes decisions based on emotion instead of logic, someone who believes what's comfortable instead of what's true. The cleverest man alive would never have believed Cersei. Tyrion believes Cersei. Therefore, Tyrion is no longer the cleverest man alive. The logic is inescapable, and Tyrion knows it. This is the moment his confidence breaks. Not because he loses a battle or makes one bad decision, but because someone he respects holds up a mirror and shows him what he's become, and he can't deny it. The final truth. I used to think you were the cleverest man alive. 6 words, past tense, delivered without malice, just honest disappointment. And they destroyed Tyrion Lannister more completely than any insult Joffrey ever hurled, any humiliation Tywin ever inflicted, any betrayal Shae ever committed. Because Sansa is right. Tyrion used to be clever, used to survive through intelligence, used to see through lies and manipulate outcomes through understanding. But somewhere between leaving King's Landing and arriving at Winterfell, he lost that edge. He started believing in people instead of analyzing them. He started hoping for the best instead of preparing for the worst. He started letting his heart guide him instead of his head. And it made him useless. Worse than useless, dangerous. His bad advice got people killed. His blind faith in Cersei left the North vulnerable. His trust in Daenerys enabled a genocide. The man who used to drink and know things just drinks. The man who saved King's Landing through brilliant strategy can't see obvious lies from his own sister. The man who survived the deadliest court in Westeros becomes a liability in simpler battles. Sansa's words don't just criticize Tyrion, they bury him. They mark the end of Tyrion Lannister as the clever dwarf who outthinks everyone, and the beginning of Tyrion Lannister as just another person who lost himself trying to believe in something that was never real. I used to think you were the cleverest man alive. Past tense. Game over.